Hello chickies and welcome to the Fully Booked Penguin channel. So today we are here to do a 24-hour reading challenge. Now I'm not going to do the full 24 hours straight. I'm going to do 12 hours and then the next day another 12 hours. It will be 12 hours straight, but it won't be 24 hours because your chronic illness girly cannot do that to herself or she will crash and burn and then I won't do anything for the rest of the month. So we're not going to do that. So the books we're going to read in this 24 hours are going to be, there's hopefully going to be more than this, but for now these are the ones we're going to focus on. So today I've actually got a buddy reading meeting with a friend and we are currently reading through Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas and we are up to chapter 35. So I'll be reading 5 chapters today. Things are starting to ramp up because we're nearing the end of the book and it's been interesting. If you saw my review of the prequels to Throne of Glass, you'll see I'm not the biggest Selena fan. Just, she's not that great, okay? Especially in the prequels. And in this, she's a little all over the place too, okay? You can't deny it, but it's still fun because I'm buddy reading it, so... And then I've also got 3 stories out of Before the Coffee Gets Cold by Toshikazu Kawaguchi. I'm sorry if I butchered that name. So I've read the first part of this. Obviously I don't have a bookmark in. Oops. I am 56 pages into this. The story is interesting. It is very different from, say, your usual novel. It does remind me a bit more of a literary novel or something your professor would love because it's got that vague sort of literary feeling to it. I'm only, what, 1 chunk in and 56 pages, but it's okay so far. And then I've got A Groom of One's Own by Emma St. Clair. And so it is a ice hockey romance. I've also got that on my list after I finish, because I'm reading everything in order. Anyway, I was going to start this challenge at 8 AM. The birds are very happy chappies today, so please ignore them. They want to join in the conversation, but I don't understand bird yet, so I can't translate for you, but if you want to tune in, you can hear them going on about the books. I got yapping with my ma about Christmas holidays and people, and so it is now 9 o'clock. So we're starting the timer at 9 AM for 12 hours today. Let's see how much reading I can do. So I hope you enjoy, and let's get to reading. I have finished my 5 chapters of Throne of Glass. The romance is romancing, but I don't necessarily support the romances. I'm like, about the romance. It was going, but the last couple of chapters were just, no, none of the plot, all of the romance. So we've done those 5 chapters for the buddy read. Also, when I paused reading to write up my little blurb for each chapter, what I thought on each chapter, I did listen to Ruthless Vows by Rebecca Ross. I'm doing the audiobook for it, so I got a few chapters into that. I am listening to it at 3 times speed. It's a lot of fun. I get through it. I get all of the information, so it's one way to get through. So yes, I'm also doing that book as the audio. So if you see me filming me walking around, getting lunch, doing anything that isn't actively reading or filming, then I am listening to the audiobook. Because that's one way to make it I'm still reading, just not reading. So the next book we're on to is Before the Coffee Gets Cold. We are up to there. Husband and wife we are up to. But I also need a bit of food because I didn't eat breakfast. I just had a glass of orange juice. So I'm gonna go and eat that. We are an hour and a half into the challenge. So let me go and listen to my audiobook while I eat some food. I didn't film it because nobody wants to see it, but I did blub. I cried so much. So sad. Don't get me thinking about it because I'll cry again. The first bit was like, yeah, okay. It's a relationship, it's a, you know, it's a time. Hit you in the feels. Now I'm like, oh, do I want to read the next 100 pages? Are you going to make me cry again? I should know, because I have been known to watch Japanese dramas and animes. And the Japanese, they love to make you cry. And they like ambiguous or sad endings as well. If you've ever watched any Japanese drama, J-drama, they love those sad, melancholy feelings. And I like my happy endings and my joy. So I should have expected it from Toshikazu. That was a while ago. I went and talked to my mum about stuff because I had to stop. I had to pause because I was rivers of tears. We are now on page 109, starting the next section of this, which is the sisters. So this book, it just has 4 stories. There's no other chapterings. It's just part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4. I did have to have a break. So now we're up to 19 hours left and 7 minutes left in this. And wow. I was tempted to be like, let's just pause on the Japanese translated stuff because I don't want to cry more and move on to our next fun read, which is a romance and will not make me cry as much. I think the female main character's mum in A Groom of One's Own also has Alzheimer's. Is this a theme? Will I cry at that simply because of this emotional story? Maybe. I wasn't going to, but maybe I am. So the next story is like roughly 57 pages for the next section. Am I going to risk it? And are these little eyeballs going to recover themselves, or are they just going to cry again? Guess we're going to find out. Maybe I need to go to the office, put on my good bouncy dance tunes, and it will help me not cry. Unless the next stories aren't cry-worthy, like the first one. 7 hours left today. 19 hours left altogether. Halfway through before the coffee gets cold. Also, I got 39% through Ruthless Vows as well, while I was cleaning my room up a bit and wrapping gifts. So there's that as well. As much as I love Yu-chan, these are not the vibes for these books. This will just make me cry. Chen from Excel, his music is... but not for preventing crying. It's for making you cry. Alright, we are 84 pages into Before the Coffee Gets Cold, and I've just been crying. The first story lulls you into a false sense of security, And then just hard-hitting stuff after that. So this deals with themes of Alzheimer's, it has death, it has pregnancy complications, it has sickness. The first one is like, it's cute, it's, you know, literary, whatever. The rest of it just slaps you in the face with sadness. Anyway, so we have 4 hours and 10 minutes left for today's reading, which means we have 16 hours and 10 minutes for the whole entire challenge. We are almost finished this one. We have 29 pages left of this book, and then I'll be able to get into, I think it's the romances next. I'll have to double check, but I think I might need that after this. I'm glad they're not in a row, this one and the other one we have on our TBR, which is Before the Coffee Gets Cold, More Tales from the Cafe. Also, I don't know why there's a cat on here. There is no cat. There's no cat in the cafe, so I don't know what that's about. You know, sometimes cover artists, they're like, oh, what should we put on? Oh, let's just chuck a cat on. But, you know, maybe I'm missing something. Maybe a cat comes in with the last 29 pages of this book. I haven't really been filming because I don't want to just be bawling my little eyes out on camera. So, you're missing out on me and my extra red eyeballs. My mom was like, are you still reading those sad Japanese stories? And I was like, yes. I'm going to go read the last 29 pages of this, and then we can move on. I want to do an update like this because crying makes me exhausted, man. Gosh. Since we still have 3.5 hours left, I better get over my teary-dearies and continue reading our next book. But yes, I finished Before the Coffee Gets Cold. The last one wasn't necessarily sad, but it was. Still got me in the feels. So next up is a Kindle Unlimited pick, and it is A Groom of One's Own by Emma Sinclair. And it is a ice hockey, sports, romance, closed door. Hopefully it's a funny, goofy time. Or at least an easy read, because I would rather not cry, if possible. Please, no more tears. Thank you. Alright, onwards and upwards, they say. Let's get to reading. Hello, it's me again, your girl, Hannah. I've read a bit of A Groom of One's Own, and what can I tell you about this book? Well, we're following Eli, who has been part of the first 2 of the Appy series. And in the previous ones, he came across as like a real flirt. But in this one, it's almost like he's the hopeless romantic kind, and that he just can't seem to get a date. So, I'm not sure. Eli is a Canadian living in America. But something about visas, so he has to go back to Canada and live there and do an application from there to get back in or something, instead of just doing an online renewal. Otherwise, he has to get married. That's his 2 choices, is to leave and then he's not likely to have a place on the team when he gets back, or get married. But the problem with the second option of marriage is he's not dating anyone. You kind of need a woman who likes you in order to get married. He does have a bit of a crush, though, on a girl at a dog shelter, or like a pet shelter. And then, so Bailey works at this shelter or whatever, but she wants to get her license for, I think she wants to be a vet. But she kind of works for this lady who isn't prepared to listen or give her a letter of recommendation. So she's having a tough time, and Eli's mother has a chronic illness. I think Bailey's parents have died in a car crash, and her grandmother has dementia. So they're both having a bit of a tough time. I'm not sure what happened to Eli's father, but his mother definitely has a chronic illness, and she kind of needs the medical care that's in America. Who would have thunk it? I thought America was horrible in the health cares, but supposedly it's better than Canada. And right now, the other members of the team are part of the Find Eli a Marriage Partner team, and Eli doesn't really want their help, but they're gonna try anyway. And that's kind of where we're up to. I'm up to 21%. It is just an easier read, which I definitely needed before the coffee gets cold. So we have 3 hours left. I'm going to continue reading my little fun romance, but first I'm gonna go say hello to my dad, who just got home, and maybe grab a drink and some snacks, because I think I need it. And then we can sit down and have a fun romantic time with this book that will probably end in an arranged marriage. You'll have to ignore the dark circles. Look, I did cry most of yesterday because of before the coffee gets cold, and I may have stayed up a smidge longer. Not too late. Reading last night. Was it off the clock? Yes, but you know, I was just I have no excuses. I wanted to know what happened. Okay, now I didn't finish a closing clip, but we did get through the 12 hours yesterday. Finished one book. Got through some of the audiobook, and then got through, I think it was like 50% of A Groom of One's Own. So I thought A Groom of One's Own was going to be like a marriage book, but we're already 81% through, and the marriage is only just taking place. So it is an arranged marriage, but it mostly happens before any of the arrangement has actually happened. But I did restart this timer at 8 o'clock today. I do have an appointment for my hair at 11. So I might pause the timer, or I might just let an hour go by, because I did read for several hours last night. I'll let you know what I end up doing. We have 19% of A Groom of One's Own left to read, and I'm probably going to fly through it. Probably should have some breakfast or something. Listen, I do want to finish this book. I want to know what happens, okay? Let's get this marriage underway, then we'll move on. Tell me why I'm about to cry over a wedding. Could it just be me? Am I the problem? Am I the emotional one? He hasn't even cried yet. It's not even that emotional. I'm about to cry at a fictional wedding. Ridiculous, really? You could laugh at yourself if that was your cry. Let's just ignore that. Alright, we have finished A Groom of One's Own, and it was okay. It definitely wasn't my favourite. I mean, it's a very bingeable book, and it was fun to read, but I think that most of the book is just them not telling each other that they do truly like each other. It's just kind of repeating the same feelings, and the wrap-up isn't super thrilling or anything. Do I like Eli? Yes, I just wished he would just not listen to the advice of others, really. And so our main girl, who is the shy one, ended up doing most of the main moves. Eli, like, he did all these acts of service, but he didn't make any of the emotional movements. Or just as he was about to gear up to do it, the girl would end up doing it. And so I'm like, And I think there were just too many characters. Like, they introduced a co-worker that I thought was going to be a bigger part of it, but she was really this part and then little sprinklings that, and you're like, okay, so she's not really a big part of this at all. There are too many different characters trying to take part in a story that was too short and quick to have that many characters in it. I didn't mind with the hockey team because that all made sense and they all ended up having a bit of personality thrown in. But yeah, with all these other co-workers and people, and you're like, okay, why do we need this many randos mentioned? But again, it was a good little break from my tears yesterday. So now we move on to another fantasy, I believe. When I was doing the TPR, I kept saying of Chaos and Cadence, but I think it's of Chaos and Cadence. This one by Constance Lopez, and it's of Chaos and Cadence of CNC, the CC, and it is the second book in the Casnian Chronicles. I believe we're following a mage that you meet in the first book of the series, and a half-elf you also meet. The mage was a larger part of the previous book. I'm interested to see where that goes. He did grow on me, but I didn't love him in the first book. I wasn't sitting there like, oh, I want to see more about Liam, but I'm hoping he continues to get better in this one. Yeah, I'm excited to see more about the half-elf because she seemed to have an interesting background too. Okay, this is going to be such a strange little nitpicking, but in the cover, this guy's profile isn't to my taste. It looks like a statue bust, but it's not exactly winning me over to Liam. It doesn't match my idea of Liam in my head. But then most of the time, I just come up with a random image and they can say that the person has brown hair and I'll be like, they're blonde in my head. And so I don't know what colour hair Liam has, but Liam in my head has blonde hair, just so you know. I don't know whether that's accurate or not. And yeah, so we're jumping into a fantasy now. It has been a couple of books since we read a fantasy, so I think I'm ready to jump back into a fantasy world. I mean, just look at it. You know? I don't know, it doesn't scream good looking to me. I mean, obviously he's good looking, but just not my taste, you know? Judging a man off his side silhouette. Oh, I've become shallow, haven't I? Judging a man off his side of profile silhouette. Anyway, we have 10 hours left of the challenge. We'll see whether I end up pausing the timer and end up going later into the night tonight. But I'll let you know if I do that update, but first I need to eat some food. Hello, we are now outside and I have a small confession to make. It may not be the same day. So instead of reading yesterday, I had my hair appointment and then I talked to my bestie and I just couldn't concentrate on reading while the birds were chirping and my bestie was on call. So instead I made character profiles for my novel, and that took up until dinner time, in which my brother and his wife came over. And then we played Scrabble. I kept score because my brain wasn't functioning. And that brought us to 10 o'clock, in which case I went to bed. In 2 minutes it will be 9 o'clock and we will start the timer again. I think we had 10 hours on the clock left. Just less than 10 hours. I will still be listening to Ruthless Vows when I'm not actively doing the readery with my eyeballs. And we are of course on of Chaos and Cadence. I also got a little Christmas blanket in the mail yesterday. So I'm all festive. It's warm in the sun but cool in the shades currently. It will get hotter. So I'm gonna spend some time in the outdoors with the birds. Hopefully they don't distract me too much. It's not the kind of ambient sound that is relaxing. It's kind of cheerful and like, woo. Anyway, so we are starting today. And it's just between me and you. We're just letting that one slide, okay? Thank you. First of all, I don't know if you can see that, but boop, that little snoot. Our main girl has gone to visit her father who's in prison, and there's this random guard who she used to like, and supposedly her human magic side makes her skin glow. And she used to glow pink around him because she had a crush on him and thought herself in love. Anyway, so he now calls her Glowworm. But his name, Bob Atheon, and there's an ongoing joke in our family that anything that you randomly need a name for is Bob. Like if you're like, Bob. Bob is the name you go for if you need a name, like a male name. Creature's name, Bob. Once wrote a micro story about Bob the cat, which I wrote in literally a minute, and then it got published. I know as much as you. So Bob Atheon. I can't stop laughing at Bob Atheon. There was also this random other guard that didn't join in on Bob Atheon's teasing. He doesn't have a name, but I think I'm palo friendzos with him. But I'm not going to say, you know, oh, wrong hand. I'm not going to say that because I've done that in the past and they turned out to be evil. Anyway, so now we're in with Liam and whoever this little creature is. So cute. But yeah, I'm managing to actually read it today, so that's a good start. The father's whole excuse is that he wanted to find a space for his daughter, but at the same time he was hurting people, and she says that, and he's like, yes, but they're humans. His daughter is half human, so his little noggin thinking, it doesn't quite add up. He's like, no, I wanted a space where you as a half human wouldn't get, you know, hatred, but at the same time, humans, you know, they're like a father. No. Anyway, as I say, only a chapter in, and I should start the timer, shouldn't I? I forgot about that a little bit. Okay, so I am 13% into of Chaos and Cadence. Will I be able to get the name of this book right by the end of the video? Maybe. Isa has gone to the humans to help control her magic, hopefully get some training from the mages and that in the humans, because human and elf magic is different, and of course she has both. And Liam he's kind of besotted with her because she's so pretty, and she glows, of course, when her magic is, you know, running its course, and so he's like, wow, she just glows like a goddess, and it's so cute. I've decided I like stories where the bloke kind of likes her from the start. None of these gruff blokes who cover their feelings by being mean or really gruff, and you're just like, oh, get over yourself, mate. But I'm enjoying the story so far, and as I say, 13% in, and we have exactly 7 hours left of the challenge. I am also 50% through Ruthless Vows. And that's okay. I'm not loving it, but I don't mind it. And I think I like it more currently than the first book. I think I like the romance more in book 2. Book 1 they went from rivals to lovers so quickly that I was like, how did we get here? And I was saying, I'm 55% through, and I saw some like comments that it was slow or uninteresting, and I'm like, I'm interested so far. Maybe it gets boring after the 55% mark. I don't know, but we shall see. So I'm going to continue reading of Chaos and Cadence. Again, this little creature, wait, let me show you. There is, look how cute. I don't know why his little picture is that creature, since I think it's a star martin, And the Star Martins are the King's, not Liam's, but maybe they'll reveal that a little later on. Because Issa's is like flowers, I think. See, Issa's is just some flowers. I'm currently in the guest room because I couldn't be bothered walking down the hall to my room. And the lighting is better in here. I do kind of want to sleep though, but no, we have to read. So I'm going to continue, see what Liam thinks of Issa, controlling her magic, etc, etc. Alright, I've just wrapped up with Ruthless Vows by Rebecca Ross, our audiobook, and the first 70% of that book I was enjoying, had a great time, but the last 30% was kind of lackluster. The whole big battle with Dacre and that just, it was like nothing really, and so it was strangely paced, but I think I liked it more than book one. Simply because we do get a happy ending, even though it's kind of, here's an ending. But we are down to 4 hours left on the clock, which means I still have to read of Chaos and Cadence. Gotta write that time. I had to charge my Chromebook, but we are 21% through of Chaos and Cadence. That means we are 3 books done for the 24 hours and 21% the way through our 4th. So we'll see if I can finish off this last book in 4 hours. I don't know what I'll do if I do finish it within the 4 hours, but I highly doubt I'll finish this book. If I don't, I'll probably just go over time, but we'll see. We'll see. So we have reached the end of the 24 hours and I am 64% into Of Chaos and Cadence. Stuff is happening. Our main man, he's a bit jealous and honestly, the poor guy. But what I'm going to do is probably read the rest of it over the next while and then I will check in with you in the morning and we'll wrap this little video up because right now I'm boiling hot and exhausted. I will check in with you in the morning. Alright, we have wrapped on our 24 hours and we have succeeded in reading for that time, even over that time, but let's not talk about that. Now I do have some stats for you. We ended up reading roughly 4 books. It's more like 3 and a most of a book. We had 1,393 pages. I think that's pretty impressive. If you think about it, that's a day of reading. 4-ish books is pretty good. Now to the books we read. Well, first up, I read my 5 chapters of Throne of Glass, but we didn't finish Throne of Glass, and I pretty much gave you all the thoughts I had earlier in the video, so I won't recount that. Then we had Before the Coffee Gets Cold by Toshikazu Kawaguchi. I don't know what I was expecting, but it wasn't this, and should I have expected it? Yes. Sci-fi because there is time traveling in it, but literary fiction because that's kind of the way it's written. So this book contains 4 short stories and there are no other chapters in it. With these kind of stories, I don't know how to feel because they make me cry, but at the same time, I'm not exactly loving my time. I feel emotionally drained after books like this, and then I'm feeling melancholy. This is not a happy book. It's a melancholy book. And yet I couldn't go past the fact that it was really good, in my opinion. And I ended up giving it a 4.5. People who don't like relationship or more emotional work probably won't like this. I think you have to have some sort of in tune in your feelings to enjoy or have this book impact you in any way. And I went in thinking it was just a cozy sci-fi-ish fantasy fiction. It's not. There are hints of cozy, but it's mostly just relational drama. And it's a really reflective writing style as well. Then we got into a romance, which was A Groom of One's Own by Emma St. Clair, and it is a sports romance that follows a ice hockey player, Eli. I see a lot of people say hockey, and I'm like, that would be a very different story if it was actually on hockey. Hockey versus ice hockey is definitely a different vibe. I went into this just wanting some reprieve from my emotionals, so I did binge it and I did enjoy it. I mean, we're doing a 24-hour challenge, that kind of is binging. I did enjoy Eli. Eli is just a sweet, hopeless romantic in this, and I did enjoy the female main character as well. In the book, they have the bare bones that they could make it a more rich story, but I feel in the end it kind of falls flat. All these characters that you get introduced to, there's a lot. There's probably too many named characters in it, and you lose some of that emotional depth or possible story in these other small moments. I feel they could have foregone some of these other interactions with these random people and developed the more important ones, because you have the deportment of Eli, which isn't really a big thing. I mean, obviously it's the backbone of why he's trying to find someone and get married, but nothing happens with that plot, really. Then we have the main girl, Bailey, who has a grandmother with dementia, and her goal is to become a vet. But again, the grandma is introduced right at the beginning. You're like, okay, this is going to be an important emotional aspect of their relationship working through this. But it's really not. And the vet situation is just your stereotypical jealous boss kind of thing going on, which is barely touched as well. And so it just felt a little flat for me. And even the romance, he's really cute. Eli is cute, and he does acts of service and things like that. But in all the important moments of making a steadfast action or saying something so that their relationship can move forward from this weird arranged, not really arranged, they have feelings for each other, but they don't know what to say to each other. And he never makes any of those conversations happen. It's always Bailey. And like the third act, getting them together kind of thing, just eh. So I ended up giving it 3 stars. Again, it was good and I had a fun time, but if you look deeper, there were quite a few plot issues, or just could have been worked on a little in structural editing. Now, I was also doing my audiobook, Ruthless Vows by Rebecca Ross, in between. And I said a lot in my little video, but I stand by the fact that the final part of that book falls so flat. You have all this build up from the first book to the second book, through the second book, and then it's just like, it fizzles out. Again, in the first book, they introduced these characters, and I was like, okay, so they're going to probably be more important in book 2, but they're really not mentioned at all. Until I think the very last chapter or so, in which they get a line saying these people went to prison, and you're like, hey, so much could have been done with that plot, and it just wasn't. And so I did enjoy myself more than the first book, just because the romance was better. Now, I do usually hate the amnesia trope. I hate the anxiety of sitting there reading, knowing stuff that the main character doesn't, or they're doing things for the bad side because they have amnesia and can't remember, and you're like, oh. But in this one, they actually handled it really well. And so for that, the amnesia wasn't a big problem. Going into it, I was like, oh, this is gonna suck. But it didn't. It was actually okay. But when we came down to the rest of the book, it did, right at the end. Just, it could have been so much better than it was. So I ended up giving Ruthless Vows a 3.75. And then finally, we got through most of this book, but I'll tell you about my entire review. And that book is of Chaos and Cadence. I had a fun time. I think I liked this book better than the first book in the series of Stormlarks and Silence. I just enjoyed the characters more. In the last one, I didn't really love being with the main female character. But in this one, we end up being mostly with Liam, the male character. And I had fun being with Liam and seeing him go about stuff. He wasn't quite as annoying as in the first book. In fact, I liked him the most. I think she crafts male characters really well. I think most of her male characters I am interested in and like. I'm a bit unsure about the next book because we do follow the villain from this book. Interesting choice to follow him. I personally was hoping that we'd follow either the Elfman Prince or the friend of Liam. I was so hoping the next book was about them, but alas, it is not. I think there is a side story about Liam's friend. I was hoping he would find romance and love, but instead we're going to be following the villain. I did find our main character, Issa, kind of funny, her glowworm status. She was a little annoying about her powers, but it's okay, I get it. She was torn between two worlds. Her father was also torn between the two because he's meant to be in love with his human wife, or was, you know, past tense, rip. And yeah, he's like, ew, humans. You were married to him, my dude! So at first she just wants to get rid of the power or tamp it down, and that's never a good thing. And most of this was actually just setting up for the next book, I think, which did detract some from the story that we were currently in. So in the first book, it's mostly about them and their lore and what's happening around them. But book 2, it's like she's setting up for the next book as well. So you don't get as much focus or attention to the plot of this book. And I did like the romance, but again, they did do the whole where we don't actually like each other thing, when it's obvious they like each other. Why deny? And some moments did get a little repetitive, like when they're saying that she's practicing her magic. It would just be like, and she was off here practicing her magic. And she was off here practicing her magic. And so really all of her plotline was just, she's over here practicing her magic while Liam went off on all these adventures. And that is mainly why I preferred being in Liam's point of view, because he was actually doing something other than doubting himself and over here practicing her magic. So I ended up giving of Chaos and Cadence a 4 stars. So it was a pretty good 24 hours of reading, and I enjoyed myself. Did it tire me out? Yes. Did I take yesterday off to rest? Yes. So ranking this reading vlogs books, in first place we have Before the Coffee Gets Cold with a 4.5. Then we had Of Chaos and Cadence, which got a 4 stars. Then we have Ruthless Vows with a 3.75. And finally, we have A Groom of One's Own with a 3 stars. And then Throne of Glass gets a good old, haven't finished it yet, so I can't tell you. So my next reading vlog will actually be me getting to my set reading goal for the year. So I hope you can tune in to that video, or let me know down below whether you enjoy these books or have read them, want to read them. And until next time, thank you for watching, and peace!
T26